Places of power. 3 steps of centering.
We talked about the multidimensionality of the Absolute. In total, there are 6 basic eons. 3 transmirror eons, and 3 eons parallel to them that are as if in front of a mirror.
Полностью адекватные трудно подобрать для того, чтобы их обозначить все вместе. Есть еще ад.
There is also hell, the outer darkness, the waste of the evolutionary process.
Ну и все это находится в истинной
And all this exists in a true void, where God, in the aspect of the Absolute, abides. I should mention that in Buddhism, the word void has another meaning. In particular, they use the word voids, and by this term, they designate spaces inside particular eons. There are also various absurd and abstruse word constructions. In psychiatry, it is called reasoning. And in this case, what is a void is not clear at all. But this is not the point now. The point is the following. In our work, we have to learn to cross the boundaries between eons. And on this place of power, on this slope, there are several very exact boundaries of this kind. They are not boundaries between the basic eons, but they are somewhat similar, like sub-eons, local parts of eons that are separated by boundaries like membranes. One can give the following example to illustrate it. If we pour transparent oil and water into a transparent vessel, what happens? They will form 2 layers separated by a boundary. So, my body is exactly on such a boundary. Juan Matus spoke very clearly and concisely about such structures as boundaries between eons or sub-eons. In particular, sub-eons are smaller divisions of eons. I need only to cross a boundary by moving my body, and inside my anahata, I can be on both sides of such a boundary. And I can then also study it very well from both sides. It is the same case with the real boundaries between the main spatial eons, like the mirror, the curtain, and others. They are the most important ones for the practice of full cognition of the Absolute. They are the main structures that we, as consciousnesses, have to learn to cross, perceive, and so on. So, on this part of the road, on this slope, we can find about 10, or maybe less, of such boundaries, of such membranes. Now, let us walk for some time on this road and learn to find inside the anahatas of our bodies these membranes, these boundaries. Let us learn to perceive them and penetrate through them. And later we'll need to do the same thing when we learn to distribute ourselves as consciousnesses in all eons of the Absolute. And then, from the abode, we'll very easily perceive the whole world of the creation. We'll see it very well subdivided into several segments. And, like the Creator does, we'll see the order in the evolution of souls in each of these eons. But for now, we have to learn to cross the membranes, so that later we can freely move as consciousnesses throughout the Absolute. So, let's begin to learn to do it right now. I'll give you one membrane here. Everyone can stand there with your bodies and then move up the slope and search for other places like this. So, let's stay here for half an hour and work. So, the membrane is in the anahata of the body. Do you feel it? One has to learn to feel it from both sides simultaneously. This place was pointed out by me. You have to find several other similar places. Well done. So, we just have to train ourselves here. Move further. Others should also try to learn to feel this place and search for other places. Do you feel it? It is precisely in our anahatas that we perceive this movement, this crossing of the border, which is like crossing a wall. This of what one must not do in esotericism. Now, we're on the negative place of power. It's right there, nearby. Some beasts, mages, who made their purpose to develop themselves in the coarsest aspects of energetics, intentionally made themselves devils and doomed themselves to live in the outer darkness outside of God. They actively developed devilish power on this place of power. They even arranged a special bench. It was a few years ago. If one sits leaning here against the trunk of this pine, it doesn't depend on this pine, it's the effect of the place of power. It's possible that one will then not be able to stand up. Here, there is a paralyzing, possessing, and clinching hellish energy that drains the consciousness and makes one attuned to it. So this group of mages arranged a bench and couches, but they are covered with grass now. There are such perversions of the spiritual path, where people do not seek love, do not seek God in the aspects of the Creator, the Holy Spirit, divine teachers, and seek to attune to them, to become like them. Instead, some people seek to develop coarse power in order to suppress other people and rule them. I have seen many people like that. Yesterday we saw such a man. A man who possessed an awful devilish field. He is a devil in the flesh. It's not a swear word, it's a fact. He is a man with the coarsest energy of consciousness, energy that suppresses and paralyzes other people. He spreads his indriyas into other people, and this makes the chakras of others dark, and people get sick. And there are many like him, unfortunately. And, unfortunately, personally for me, the people who perverted the work that God does through me, my former students, became pseudo-students. These people made efforts to produce such devils. This happens when a teacher doesn't take into account the intellectual and ethical features of his or her students, but when they want to show themselves as spiritual leaders or simply make money, we teach for free. We don't impose any financial conditions. Because of this, we have full freedom to dismiss students who don't show positive qualities or certain intellectual and ethical features. We have full freedom to dismiss them. But there are many pseudo-leaders, pseudo-spiritual pseudo-leaders who make money and fame by selling some mystical nonsense. They produce devils, especially if they are devils themselves. So, one can either produce and grow divine teachers, people who will be divine teachers in the future, and who will live in the abode of the Creator forever. They will help the positive evolution of consciousnesses during the ages, millennia, and eternity of the universe's existence. Or one can produce and grow souls who will become inhabitants of hell, who will resist the positive evolution. Jesus said, "Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to sin. Such things must come, but woe to the person through whom they come." Why must such things come? Why must temptations come? Because only the people who overcame ethical trials, only these people are worthy to approach the Creator, to enter the abode of the Creator. And on the spiritual path there are many temptations. Temptations like this, for example. To make more money or fame, worldly fame, to rule people, or to grow egocentrism. And the coarser the energy of a person as a consciousness, the easier it is for him or her to live in human society. Because such a person has a very real, paralyzing and suppressing energy of consciousness, an energy that paralyzes and suppresses other people. It's easier for them to be rulers, for sexual maniacs. It's easier for them to satisfy their lust, because their victims cannot resist. They are paralyzed by such people's devilish energetics, and so on. And why is there such trouble? Why does this happen? Because people don't know the truth. They don't know the laws of the evolution. They don't know why we're here on the earth, or what is the meaning of life. And attempts to explain this are resisted by atheists, and by all kinds of religious sectarians. And because there is no true spiritual knowledge, this causes such benches where devils grow, and we, who are ready to go to God, let's go to Him. I'm going to speak a bit more about why I made errors by teaching non-worthy people. This was because there was no higher spiritual tradition in Russia for the last several centuries. There was no higher knowledge about merging with God. There were attempts. There were remarkable people like Pushkin, Tolstoy, and Talkov. They correctly understood the general spiritual path and the perversions of it. But their understanding was only about the initial levels of the spiritual search, the initial steps. There had been no spiritual culture in Russia for a long time. And I had to begin from the very beginning. Now we, our school, can say that we're bringing the knowledge directly from the abode of the Creator to embodied people. Everyone who contacts the divine teachers, whom we show, whom we converse with,
которые вырастили нас.
and who raised us.
Вы можете у них переспросить.
You can ask them.
Более того,
Moreover,
общая схема строения абсолюта,
the general scheme of the structure of the Absolute that was shown to us by Ph.D. and by other teachers,
похоже, еще никогда
has probably
в такой
never been released in such fullness.
была обнародована. И вот только мы
And only we
смогли воспринять
have managed to receive
всю полноту этих знаний,
this fullness from God, the fullness of this knowledge, as a broad conception,
в виде стройной системы,
in the form of an exact system that covers all aspects
духовного
of spiritual advancement.
представлена нами и
This scheme has been released by us and offered to you.
И поскольку не было исчерпывающих
And since there was
знаний,
no full knowledge,
у меня в частности,
and I did not have this knowledge,
то вот Бог учил меня на
God
жизненных
taught me
примерах,
through life examples,
в частности на
in
том,
particular,
как
by showing
люди
me
сходят с пути,
how people deviate from the path.
предлагая мне в качестве учеников людей,
He offered me non-worthy people as students,
и показывал мне, что бывает
and
в
showed
случаях,
what
когда
happens in cases
такие люди
when such people
становятся
are
обладателями
given
духовных
spiritual
знаний,
knowledge,
как они тут
and
же
how they
начинают их
begin
извращать
to pervert it
и использовать
immediately
в корыстных
and
целях.
use it for selfish purposes.
Вот последний раз мне пришлось расстаться с очень
In the
большой
past,
группой.
I had to push aside a very large group of students in Moscow.
Это был центр
It was the
Ваджраяна.
center called
Ну и все это я
Vajrayana.
описал
I
подробно
described it in my
в своей
autobiography,
автобиографии, как
how God
называется Бог.
can be cognized.
Есть три аспекта
There are three aspects
божественного совершенства,
of the divine perfection.
которые соответствуют трем
They correspond
основным качествам.
to the three qualities of God.
Это любовь,
They are love,
это мудрость и это
wisdom,
сила.
and power.
Мы работаем по
We
всем трем
work
направлениям.
with all three aspects,
Любовь
though the main one
единственный аспект.
is love.
Не став любовью,
One cannot merge with God without becoming love,
постоянно
without making oneself a permanent emotion of love.
эмоции — это состояние
An emotion is a state of consciousness,
И вот мы должны
and we have to learn to live
постоянно
in a permanent emotion of love,
не переходя
without
в
entering
отрицательные
negative emotions
ни в гнев, ни в
like anger
раздражение, ни
or irritation,
во всякие там сожаления о
or
собственной
sorrows
судьбе,
about one's fate,
ни всякие там внутренние плачи
or depression,
и прочее.
and so on.
Этому посвящено учение Иисуса Христа.
Jesus taught about
Подробно
this.
сейчас нет смысла об этом говорить.
I'm not going to discuss it now.
В разделе
You can read about it in the book God Speaks, in the section The Original Teachings of Jesus Christ. You will find the necessary citations there.
Став любовью, познав
So, having become love
пространственные мерности, иначе их
and having cognized the highest spatial dimensions,
через работу по
they cannot be cognized in any other way but through the work
духовного сердца,
of extending the spiritual heart
превращение его в активное,
and making it an
подвижное
active,
сознание.
agile consciousness.
Но вот когда значительные
So, when a considerable part of this path has been finished,
тогда
only then
можно приступить к работе со
can one begin to
сверхъестественным,
work with the aspect of
силой
power,
сознания.
power of consciousness.
К
Before one begins to do such work, one's body must become healthy and strong. Otherwise, one cannot sustain all the work that we have done, such as, for example, what we have done during the last several days. There are special methods for growing the power of the consciousness by using the energy structures of the bottom dantian. All this is permissible to do on the spiritual path only when the consciousness has been made subtle, and only after the teacher has become convinced that the students are intellectually and ethically ready for this work. A serious error of many spiritual schools consists in involving all people into esoteric work who wish to do this. This is a very serious error. And it is a felonious error of the leaders who know this, but nevertheless do it. This is a felony for God and for people. It's another matter when a leader doesn't know it, and he or she thinks that giving spiritual knowledge of any level to all people is good for them. He or she thinks that all people are equal, but of course, people are very different. We are very different by the ages of us as souls, and only souls who have lived many incarnations, human incarnations, only such souls can be considered intellectually mature enough and capable of withstanding such a serious path. And now we will come in touch slightly with the power aspect of spiritual advancement. Very slightly. Such information cannot be given to the general public. We're talking about different methods of developing the lower dantian. The lower dantian and the upper dantian are auxiliary to the middle dantian, or spiritual heart. On this remarkable and wonderful place of power, we will describe one of the exercises. One has to enter with the concentration of the consciousness into the lower dantian. You can hear that my voice has changed immediately. And like a separate muscle, a big muscle, like a bicep, we take it and enlarge it, not the biceps itself, but we create an image of a muscle and fill this image with the consciousness. A muscle like a bicep, and this muscle can contract. And we fill this image with the consciousness, and we just contract the muscle and the body follows. Consciousness is inside the muscle, and it's enough just to contract the muscle. And the body, without effort, begins to move. This is not the work of the muscles of the body, this is the work of the consciousness. It's not important to which side of the body this muscle is attached. It has to be attached to the center of the lower dantian, not to the navel, but to the level of the navel to the center.
Такие елочки.
Nice furs.
Сколько нежности
There is so much tenderness
в каждом таком
in every
росточке,
branch.
веточке. Ну вот мы сейчас на очередном
Now,
месте силы.
we're on to the next place of power.
И вот это место силы
This
не
place of power
только
can give us
может нам подарить увеличение сознания,
not just growth of consciousness,
прямой рост сознаний, но
direct
вот
growth
здесь
of
еще с точки
consciousness,
зрения вот земной
but here there
экологии
is an interesting
очень интересное
ecological
явление.
phenomenon.
Здесь везде черника растет.
There are bilberries here.
Ну что бывает с черничинами?
What happens to bilberries?
Ну вот когда там в конце, во второй
They,
половине
during the
июля,
second
что ли,
half of
да,
July,
они созревают,
ripen,
а потом
and then the
опадают
leaves fall off.
черничные к осени. А вот на этой горке черника не
And on this
опадает.
hill,
Вот
bilberries
уже
don't fall off,
морозы, и вот черничники
not even when the cold weather
замерзают, их
comes,
очень много здесь. Вот,
and the bilberries
это
freeze.
уникальнейшее место. Вот здесь,
This
на
is a
этой
unique
горке,
place on this hill.
черника не опадает.
Bilberries don't fall off,
Черника здесь замерзает,
get
ягодки
frozen
замерзают на кустах,
on the bushes
и
and
так
stay
вот
like
висят.
this.
И можно сюда приходить
One
и
can
их
then
уже
come here
вот как
and eat them.
мороженое, черничное, только без молока.
It's like a bilberry ice
Вот
cream,
здесь,
but without
в очень
milk.
больших количествах вкушать. Это характерно для мест силы.
Places of power can have different characteristic features.
Sathya
We also
Sai,
know, for example, of a place of Sathya Sai Baba where Kalancho grow. We will talk about this. It is a unique place. There is a small hill there, and that is the only place in our region where white Kalancho grow. And mushrooms grow much more often on places of power, like at the place of power of Jesus. There are no mushrooms anywhere nearby, but on this place, it's as if Jesus grows mushrooms for us. We'll go there and find mushrooms only on his place. Not far from here, there is a place of hara, the structure of the bottom dantian. When the season comes, mushrooms first begin to grow on that place, and only after do they begin to grow nearby. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And here, what will we do here? Here, there are no ripe bilberries, only small green berries on bushes. Here, there are also no usual mushrooms. Well, almost none, just honey fungi. We already gathered prickly cups on the place of power of Peter. Now, it's the end of May, and the autumn kind of mushrooms grow here. The summer kind, honey fungi, began to grow here in the middle of May instead of the middle of June. It is a unique ecological phenomenon. We are able to eat a lot of mushrooms because we know the places of power. We are able to eat real autumn mushrooms in spring. So, we have started developing ourselves as spiritual hearts. We have mastered the first step of centering. We have entered our anahatas. We have cleaned them, and we have made them subtle. When making the consciousnesses in our entire organisms subtle, we have learned to extend the walls of our anahatas. We have traversed very energetically the path of enlarging ourselves as growing spiritual hearts at the level of divine subtlety. And later, we will try to fill the abode of the Creator with ourselves as spiritual hearts. That is, we will try to fill the infinity and become the infinity ourselves. And to do this, we took our first steps in the park, in the cocoon of the poplar. The energy of that poplar is very adequate for our spiritual hearts. It is a very powerful and very subtle poplar. First, we learn to fill its form, which is given to us, with its cocoon, and we were expanding ourselves as spiritual hearts. After that, we did a lot of things. We filled the Mahadubles of our divine teachers, which they gave us for this purpose. But it's one thing to fill the forms of others. One must also develop the skill of creating one's own Mahadouble. And this place of power will allow us to experience ourselves to be our own Mahadoubles in our own form. This is a small place of power. It has a diameter of 2 meters only. But if one stands on it, then it happens that the consciousness begins to grow. It gets so filled with energy. What is this? It's some kind of an acupuncture point of the organism of the planet Earth, our beloved living planet Earth. Here, there is a flow of energy, and the quality of this energy is very similar to the quality of energy of the poplar. This energy is very suitable for us to work with. We can use it for forming ourselves as big consciousnesses. This is the third Brahmanic manifestation. It's enough to step inside, just to do one step, and we, as consciousnesses, become so large that the clouds on the sky are at the level of our chests. So, first, you will enter this place of power. And what to do next? In order to attain a new useful state, one always has to use the formula. Who am I? Where am I? This is not a form of self-suggestion. Sometimes it is used in an absurd way as a form of self-suggestion. I wrote about this in the book, How God Can Be Cognized, and I gave examples. But this formula is very useful, namely for us to become aware of our new spiritual states. We have to become aware of ourselves in a new state, in a large body of consciousness. And also we need to move. We need to move as these new, vast bodies of consciousnesses that have grown to. The distance to the clouds here now is about 1 kilometer. It's hard to estimate this by eye. But we have become higher than the clouds. The clouds are at the level of the chests of our new bodies. And we have to strengthen the muscles of our bodies. We have become giants. We can look down from above. But right now, a cloud is blocking our view. One can look down at our feet, our vast feet. Our feet are larger than the hill. They are very large. Then one can become even larger, so that the earth becomes like a small ball, smaller than our feet. Now I'm going down, taking my usual appearance. You too can perform such transformations of yourself on this place of power. We must learn to habitually experience ourselves as beings, not in the size of a material body, but as vast beings. It's not necessary to only experience ourselves as gigantic, anthropomorphic forms, but we can also experience ourselves as waves of light or lumps of light. When we will learn to live in the abode of the Creator, it will be not necessary, not important, because all forms there disappear. There are no forms there. It is like an ocean, like the waters of the ocean that fill the ocean. All consciousnesses there are merged. The Creator is one. And when we arise from it, then we automatically take anthropomorphic forms of the Brahmanic or Holy Spirit level. But right now, we have to habituate ourselves to being very large. We indeed become very large on this place of power, and we have to use the energy of this place of power. Instead of the usual energy from food, we need to attain this new large state. By visiting this place of power, we can grow very much. Now, I ask you to enter this place of power, to experience yourself in a new giant state. And then, in this state, to exit the place of power and retain this state. We have to habituate ourselves to being large. This is an aspect of power. So, please enter. Having become giants, we experience our new bodies of consciousness. First, let's be relaxed as consciousnesses and experience the spontaneous change of situation. Suddenly, I become a giant. One has to note it and then begin to act while being this large form. How to act? By moving. When we move, we experience ourselves. We must move ourselves as consciousnesses. We have to habituate ourselves to the fact that we're not bodies, but that we're consciousnesses. Consciousnesses like this, giant and subtle. The program, the full program of self-perfecting, or in other words, The program of full self-realization or God-realization implies cognition of God in all of his aspects. In the aspect of the Creator, first of all, this is the first step, the cognition of Him. The second step is merging, and through this merging, becoming Him. A pigeon sings, a forest pigeon. I don't know if you have heard them before or not. How to realize the first step? Through the method of Yidam, when divine teachers guide students through the forms of their divine bodies of consciousness, guiding them into the abode of the Creator. For this, it is useful to know the full structure of the Absolute. It is represented in the schemes published in our books. It gives an even more complete and full understanding of what has to be done. It gives much more stability on the spiritual path. So, if we have cognized the Creator, having entered His abode, what must we do next? Emergence doesn't happen automatically when we enter the abode. To become a part of the Creator, one has to master the methods of merging with the divine consciousness. One of such methods is called the mechanism of total reciprocity. That is, making the consciousness fully opposite. I will explain it. Every one of us experiences ourselves inside some small or large volume of space. Who am I? Where am I? Some people can say, I'm the body, or I'm a feeling of an I inside my head. The first answer is completely wrong. Man is not a body, but most people, both atheists and believers, think that they are bodies. It's a sign of ignorance and the trouble of these people who, because of their stubbornness, or because of an absence of a true spiritual culture in their society, have accepted such nonsense. If we have learned to experience ourselves outside our bodies, now I mean our group, which is present here, thanks to much training, we became spiritual hearts, which are now much larger than our material bodies. To push ourselves inside our bodies is something ridiculous and absurd for us. We do not fit into our material bodies. We cannot push ourselves inside our bodies, because now we're too large. But anyway, our usual state now, to be a formed or formless lump of consciousness. This is our state. But what does one have to do to dissolve oneself? I already gave examples of this. We trained in this one day, at evening, in the forest, on the place of Sattva, when woodcocks were flying over the swamp. For this, one had to feel the forest, to feel the harmony of that forest and become it. If we manage to become the forest and forget about our bodies, it means that we dissolved as consciousnesses in this forest. We filled this forest with ourselves. This is a model of the process of consciousness dissolution. And all of this can be done easily on the material plane, where we are accustomed to living, incarnated into material bodies. We have lived for many years in the world of matter. We have lived in this environment, in its best manifestations, and we are used to this. We have learned to live where there are objects. But if we enter other eons, where there are no usual objects, where there is pure consciousness, then how do we do it there? It doesn't work if one hasn't mastered special esoteric methods more serious than simply dissolving oneself in the sattva of the forest. And for this purpose, there are the methods of total reciprocity, or in Buddhism, in non-degenerate Buddhism, there is the term Nirodhi, which is the same as total reciprocity. We have to exit outside the lump, and we have to be absent inside the lump, where we first were. We have to appear outside, everywhere outside, and the vectors of the consciousness should be pointing to the center. They should point to the place where we first were. Flying ants. They also investigate the space. Now, this is a special place of power. Its diameter is about 5 meters. Now, I will enter this place, and the consciousness will automatically enter the state of Nirodhi. Now, I'm going to cross the border, and you will see what happens. Later, you will repeat the same thing. I want to stress that with words this cannot be explained. It doesn't lead to a positive result. It can be mastered only on special places of power. Now, I exist as a lump of consciousness around my body. This is the border. I have crossed the border. Now, there is no lump at all. There is only consciousness dissolved in the outside space. And the vectors point to the place where previously there was the center of me. One may ask me, over what distance, the distance from the former center, did the dissolution of myself happen? I did not dissolve into infinity. There are other places that allow one to do this on larger scales. Those who have mastered this mechanism while being in the abode of the Creator can do this on much larger scales. And now, where do I exist as a non-I? Non-I is an exoteric term. There was once an I, and then it became a non-I. It's something like 600 meters of radius. It also depends on the original size of the lump. The larger size of the lump, the larger the distance over which the dissolution happens. The consciousness does not automatically dissolve in the abode of the Creator. We have to prepare ourselves for this dissolution. What I did now has to become natural. It has to happen automatically. It has to become as natural as the state of the lump. When we enter the abode of the Creator, we must not have to remember what we should do to dissolve. I repeat that dissolving doesn't happen automatically. We have to be ready to dissolve, and we have to prepare ourselves now. And if we have mastered this mechanism, if this state has become natural, then we very quickly and easily, without thinking, enter the full emergence, becoming Him. It's also important to stress that this state is possible only from the Anahata. It is realizable only by the structures of the lower bubble of perception. Neither Nirvana nor Nirodhi is possible if we have not firmly become spiritual hearts. Now, I will exit the place of power and return to a usual state. Now, I have become a lump. I will enter again. I enter and dissolve. Now, you will work on this place of power, and then you will have to learn to do the same thing while being outside of this place. This is our work for today, so please, I ask you to work. We are currently visiting the place of vishudha, while on our way to the place of hara. It is created not by the power of the earth, but it is created by the sound of the creek. There are small rapids on the creek. They create a very tender and soft sound that activates the vishudha. One can use this place for healing the organs of the neck, such as the thyroid gland, larynx, gullet, and bronchi. There are places of power for different chakras. We have already worked the places for the development of anahata and for the development and refinement of the head chakras. There are also places for Svadhisthana, Manipura and Muladhara. There are places for each chakra. There are special places of power for the various systems of chakras as well. For example, in Moscow, I found a place, unfortunately, near a highway, that is a place for healing pathologies related to pregnancy. On this place, one grows a belly like that of a pregnant woman, independent of the sex of the person. And a very highly harmonious and tender state is experienced inside this belly. All pathologies related to pregnancy can be treated on this place. We have come to the place of hara. First, I want to answer the question about Nirvana and Nirodhi. What is the difference between them? Nirvana is a state where the I is burned out and destroyed. What we did while merging with divine teachers is also a variant of Nirvana, disappearing in the consciousnesses of our divine teachers is one of the variants of Nirvana, namely Nirvana in Brahman. It was described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. There is also Nirvana in Ishvara, that is, Nirvana in the abode of the Creator, Nirvana in mergence with the Creator. We will study this as well. And it has been experientially studied in our school in detail. As for Nirodhi, I have already explained what Nirodhi is. It is a variant of Nirvana used for training. It is a special exercise for transforming the I into non-I. But in the real Nirvana, I and non-I are merged. I and non-I are merged in God. And there is no difference. All the Apostle said in the New Testament, there are his words, "It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. It is a very correct meditation. But there may be another similar one. Not Christ who lives in me, but rather there is only Christ. Maybe it is more significant. That is, there is no me, there is only Christ. This is the essence of Nirvana, the essence of the state of Nirvana. It is the same way for us when we work with Sathya Sai Baba and Babaji, with Krishna, with Tahatep, with Manuel, with Elizabeth H., with Lao, or with many others. Every time the boundaries between me and the Divine Teacher disappear, we are simultaneously, in his or her Brahmanic part of consciousness, merged together into one. There is only he or she, and there is a me that has merged in every one of them. We're in a single form, we're in a merged state. And this state of mergence exists in the abode of the Creator. All those who are there are merged. And everyone existing in the abode can say, there is only the Creator, the primordial consciousness, there is no me. But at the same time, he or she can say I on behalf of the Creator. This is how messiahs or avatars use the word I, and it is true. And since we have been discussing some terms of Buddhism, I can also say that the purpose of Buddhism is mergence with the primordial consciousness. The Creator in Buddhism is called the primordial consciousness. It's fully adequate. But there are various degenerate sects of Buddhism. In St. Petersburg there is such a sect, and not only in St. Petersburg, where the primordial consciousness is denied. It is a strange degeneration, a strange incoherence. It is a sectarian absurdity to say that there is no primordial consciousness. I saw a similar kind of absurdity on TV. There is a southern Buddhist country, and their main doctrine is about what a human eats. People there consider themselves Buddhists, but violate the main rules of Buddhism by eating fish. And since they eat fish, they think that they will become fishes. And if fishes eat humans, they will become humans. This is the doctrine, the religious doctrine of the people of that country. Although they consider themselves Buddhists, their form of Buddhism is very degenerate. The same kind of degeneration can be found in the sect of St. Petersburg that I mentioned. But in reality, true Buddhism, serious Buddhism, does not play with words or try to satisfy its followers with such incoherent concepts. The purpose of Buddhism is attainment of Nirvana, which Krishna described in the Bhagavad Gita. This teaching was fully accepted by Gautama Buddha, the founder of Buddhism. Specifically, there is Nirvana in Brahman and Nirvana in Ishvara, in other words, in the abode of the Creator. The purpose of true Buddhism is to cognize the primordial consciousness and to merge with it, to enter it, to enrich it with ourselves. This is the true Buddhism, and it's not different. Its methodology is not different from what we do. The general methodology of all true religious movements is the same. to put oneself in order ethically, to make oneself subtle as a consciousness, to develop oneself as a spiritual heart, and with oneself as a spiritual heart, to cognize Brahman, aka the Holy Spirit, to cognize the abode of the Creator, and at the end to try to merge as a spiritual heart with the Creator, with the primordial consciousness, and then to move all the best that exists in one's dantians into Him. Additionally, one must help all evolving beings, thereby serving the Creator, whom we can also call the primordial consciousness. This must be our contribution to the evolution. And now, on this place, we'll continue to study, very slightly, the power aspect of self-development. To study what the lower dantian can give us. The lower dantian is the power support. It is the power supply for the growing and actively functioning spiritual heart. We did this slightly, and now I will show what this place can give to us, and then we'll work on another place of power. Now I'm going just to enter this place of power, and you will see what happens. Now you can look at the energetics of my cocoon. I stand outside of the place of power. The border is there. I have to make one step to enter the place of power. I have moved the concentration into the lower dantian. It didn't change much. A bee is flying around. Its energetics didn't change much. I only entered it. It became brighter. When the consciousness enters some energy structure of the organism, that structure then shines more brightly. Now I'm crossing the border. What happens? The front part of the cocoon crossed the border. Now I am crossing it with the lower dantian. What happened? It became several kilometers in size. The lower dantian became like an egg or a sphere of several kilometers in size, 4 or 5 kilometers. Now I go back. The lower dantian is also called hara. This southeastern word means belly, but not a material belly. Well, maybe to some people it means the material belly. But in esotericism, hara means the lower dantian. It supplies energy to the organism, and it is a system consisting of the 3 lower chakras. So, on this place of power, the energy of one's belly can be enlarged by, I don't know how many times. So now, it is the usual size inside of the cocoon. And then, compare this half a meter to 5 kilometers. I can reach the railroad station from this place. Watch again what happens. Now it's touching. My cocoon has entered the place of power. And now the belly
выросло сразу
has grown to several kilometers.
на километры. Если я поворачиваю тело, то пузо
If I
растет
rotate
туда.
my body,
Энергетическое пузо,
the
конечно.
energy of the belly grows there.
И вот от пребывания на этом месте силы,
Now,
от запечатления,
I have exited the
вышло
place
место силы, всё
and it's
вылилось.
back. There is no longer an enormous belly.
Тело сознания сразу
Notice
похудело.
that I, as a consciousness, have grown
А то, что
subtle.
было, что... Вот как можно толстеть и худеть,
And how was it done?
всего лишь переступая одну границу.
Just by stepping over the border.
И вот нижний дантиан или хара или
The lower
энергетическая
dantian
пузо,
is called also hara, or the energy of the belly.
сила лично, это вот
It is the main component of the personal power of man.
силы человека. Ну, разумеется, не
Of
только
course,
силы, которые
this
можно
must not
подавлять
be a
других
power that
людей.
can suppress other people.
Если эта сила утончена,
This power must be subtle,
как у нас. А это все то, что нужно для того, чтобы
it is necessary to nourish the spiritual heart,
чтобы
so that it can grow
его было вырасти до
to
тех
such a
масштабов,
size
чтобы заполнить собой всю
that it can
галактику,
fill the whole galaxy and later the whole abode
потом всю обитель Творца.
of the Creator.
Я вот не знаю, очень не уверен.
I'm not sure whether we would have managed to do anything if we did not have this place.
Кстати, вот это
By the
место
way,
силы курируется
This
Кришной.
place of power is supervised
Здесь
by
недалеко
Krishna.
то самое место
Krishna's
Кришны,
main place is
где он
nearby,
показывает
where he
ядро
shows
Земли,
the core of the earth.
путь к ядру Земли,
and the way
второй
to
этап
it.
центрирования.
This is the second step of centering.
Если бы он не показал это место силы мне когда-то,
If it had not been shown to
едва ли
us,
удалось бы нашей
we would
школе
hardly have reached the abode of the
достичь
Creator.
обители Творца. Потому что
Because
вот это место силы позволило
this place
очень
allowed us to
быстро
grow
вырасти сознание.
very quickly
Да,
as consciousnesses.
как бы иначе,
How?
ну, Махадубли, да,
As
Махадубли,
Mahadubles,
вот километры
Yes.
вверх, километры
kilometers upwards and kilometers downwards through the entire earth.
Но ведь задача
But the purpose is much greater.
задача стоит
The purpose
несравненно больше, чем
is much
просто
greater
заполнение
than to make
Махадублей.
ourselves into
Задача
Mahadubles.
стоит в том, чтобы
The purpose
самим удерживаться
is to attain this state,
в этих и несравненно
to stay in this and much larger volumes of space
собою, как сознанием.
as consciousnesses.
Потому что только
Only
вот
such
это
a large
большое
consciousness
сознание, маленьким
can do this
сознанием,
work.
ну что, ну вот
What can a small
даже
consciousness
если
do?
кто-то поможет запихнуться
Even
в обитель
if a
Творца,
small consciousness was helped to enter the abode of a Creator,
оно ж там не сможет удержаться,
it
оно
could
там
not
не
stay
будет
there.
способно.
It could not do anything there.
Только вот сознание, выращенное
Only a
до
consciousness that has
галактических
grown
размеров, ну,
to a
хотя бы
galactic
размеров
size, or at
сознания
least
планеты,
to the size of the planet.
оно способно
Only such a
активно
consciousness can
функционировать
actively
из обители
function from the
Творца.
abode of the
Думаю,
Creator.
что только вот такие сознания,
I
выращенные
think
до такой
that only
степени,
consciousnesses of such a size are accepted by the Creator.
разумеется, они должны быть
Of course,
утончены до
they have to be subtle at the first Brahmanic level of subtlety.
в других состояниях просто
Other states,
ну просто не то, что Творец
it's
не
not that the
впустит,
Creator doesn't
просто
allow it,
в принципе невозможно
but it's
войти
just
в него.
impossible to enter Him
Творца
in another
можно войти
way.
только из
The Creator
первой
can be entered only from the first
области,
Brahmanic level or
ну или еще из
of subtlety, or
протопуруши,
from Pratapurusha.
входа.
This is the other way of entering.
Очень печально, что вот это место,
It's a pity that this place,
благодаря тому, что
due to former students of our school,
какие-то мои отщепенцы от нашей школы стали показывать всем, кому
We began
попало,
to show this place
ради
to everyone for the sake of
вот
self-interest.
это место стало использоваться и
This
черными
place is now
магами.
used by black mages.
Встречал здесь таких.
I saw people like that on this place.
Печальные факты все это, но
This
что
is
ж
very
поделать,
sad.
ничего не поделаешь.
But I cannot do anything about this.
Есть свобода воли у людей.
There is the free will of people and of leaders.
Горе миру от
Woe
соблазна,
to the world because of the things that cause people to sin.
и при этом горе
Such
тому,
things
через кого
must
соблазн
come,
приходит.
but woe to those through whom they come. Jesus said this.
Ну а давайте сейчас вот на этом месте поработаем, запечатлеем
And us,
свои
let's work on this
огромные
place
пузо
to attain our huge bellies
и унесем, обогатим их
and
энергии,
enrich
духовные сердца,
our spiritual hearts
так, чтобы
with their energy,
унести
thereby
отсюда
making them
их в гораздо большем объеме,
much
в гораздо
larger.
большей силой,
much more powerful,
так, чтобы наши нирваны
so that our states of nirvana
стали несравненно более эффективными,
become much more effective,
ну и чтобы мы смогли
and so that we will be able
еще эффективнее выстаивать в
to more
трудностях
effectively withstand the difficulties
материального мира, пока
of the
мы
material
еще
world
воплощены здесь,
while we're embodied
и
here.
пусть это будет во
And let
благо
this be for the sake of the evolution, for the good of the people who want to follow this path.
Ну, прошу вас, заходим и
So I ask you to
находим со
enter,
всех сторон.
to find the border from all sides.
Граница места силы,
The glade is large.
переступаем границу
Cross the border.
и ощущаем, как меняется пузо,
And experience how the belly changes,
на сколько километров у кого оно подрастет тут же.
to how many kilometers it grows.
И вот это состояние нужно перевести, сделать эти новые
And we have to
состояния
make this new
сознания
state of consciousness
присущими нам навсегда.
inherent to us forever.
Сделать это своим личным достижением,
To
достоянием.
make it our own personal achievement,
С этой ступени, с новой
and
ступени
from
будем
this
продолжать
stage
путь дальше.
to continue to move further.
А пришли мы сюда
We have come here
к Сатья Саи.
to Sathya Sai Baba.
Вот на фоне
Over there,
зелени свежий весенний холмик
there is a small green hill.
рассматривается. Маленький холмик. Вот про этот холмик я говорил,
This is the hill
то это уникальнейшее место,
that
где
I
растут
said
каланхои.
is the place where Kalancho grow.
Переживая наши
They managed to survive our cold winters. During the winter, there is not much snow on the top of the hill.
Но вот, тем не менее, растут дикие каланхои.
Nevertheless, Kalancho grow
Mahadoubles Сатья
inside the
Саи.
Mahadouble of Sathya Sai Baba.
Сатья Саи, вот мы издалека еще подходили.
And Sathya Sai Baba was with us
Сюда, вот он уже был с нами.
when we were approaching this place.
И вот здесь
This is a
прекрасное
wonderful
место,
place
на котором можно
where one
очень
can
плодотворно
work
работать,
very fruitfully
сливаясь с
by merging
проявлениями
with the highest
Абсолюта,
manifestations of the Creator,
познавая Сатья Саи,
recognizing
беседуя
Sathya
с
Sai
ним.
Baba.
И вот
and
сейчас мы
conversing
на
with
этот
him.
холмик пройдем
Now we'll go to that hill
и будем работать внутри
and work inside the consciousness
сознания
of
Сатья Саи.
Sathya Sai Baba.
А пока мы смотрим издали,
And for a
можно
while,
попробовать
you can
рассмотреть его
look
лицо
from a distance at his
над
face.
этим холмиком.
His face is above that hill.
Вот метров, наверное, 300.
I think that the
где
height of his
самого
Mahadouble
Mahadoubles.
is something like 300 meters. Now he is leaning over us. His face is now above us. He is greeting us very gladly and tenderly. Now we're going to enter his Mahadouble. What are Mahadoubles for? Mahadoubles exist for us to work inside of them. Mahadoubles are the condensed consciousness of the highest manifestations of God on special places on the surface of the earth. These places are created for us, for cognizing, for merging, for dissolving, and for learning to live in these highest divine manifestations. These are some of the reasons why God creates Mahadoubles for us, Mahadoubles of the first Brahmanic level. And now let's go and work. A flock of gulls flies by on migration. The skylark is singing to us. I remember one case about black grouses. One day, we were far to the north, on the former Finnish lands, captured by Russians at the time of Stalin. And there was a lake and a beautiful valley. It was spring. We entered, and everywhere black grouses were singing. Hundreds of them. It was enough just to exit outside of the material world. If one entered the material world, then there were no black grouses. It was enough just to enter into the subtle dimensions of the multidimensional space. And there was a choir of hundreds, thousands of black grouses. What does that mean? It is a paradise for black grouses, like for people. It is described in my book Spiritual Heart. It contains remarkable citations about how people, good people, just good people, not spiritual seekers, how they live after disembodiment. Their paradise is the recreation of the conditions in which they lived on the earth, those which they lived in goodness and with pleasure. They continue to live like this until the next incarnation, and the next incarnation is according to their karma. They get the corresponding body of the corresponding sex, depending on what qualities they have to develop in the next incarnation. Either love, tenderness in the female body, or the qualities of leadership through a male incarnation, and so on. It is the same with animals. So, on that place, black grouses live unembodied in their paradise, waiting for their next incarnations, most probably an incarnation into mammalian bodies. The skylark came singing. In spite of strong gusts of wind, it hovers and sings for us. So, black grouses, in their paradise, live the same life that they lived previously. They live in the conditions of spring, and they recall the past and come together to singing pleasure. They sing as a choir, making pleasure with their beautiful songs, for themselves and for us. there are no longer any incarnated black grasses around. But I wish the tradition of this place to be restored. May the black grouses sing here always. As David Copperfield said, first, one has to pose and put one's wings like this and put one's tail up. Very well. Of course, we came here not for the sake of looking at black grouses, but to contemplate Sathya Sai Baba. Our aim is not paradise, even the paradise of black grouses. Our aim is to merge with the Creator in His abode. In the beginning, as we always do, we have to fill up with ourselves the form given to us by Lord Sathya Sai Baba. It is a great Mahadouble, a great, vast body of consciousness, of the first Brahmanic level. It originates in the abode of the Creator. His Mahadouble permeates the earth without being affected by the dense material of the earth. It's a different spatial eon. There is no interaction between what happens in this eon and matter. We follow the path of the body of Sathya Sai Baba downwards to the abode of the Creator. He comes from it, as do all our divine teachers. On this hill, it is also very easy to merge with the consciousness of the earth while lying on the ground. It is morning right now. Later, it will be warmer, so that we can lie on the ground. It's marvelous. We can fall into the bliss of the consciousness of the earth, a great soul. We can experience how it moves through space. Not it, but now it is me who moves through the space with the speed of how much? 30 kilometers per second? I move through the space. Yes, like that. We have come. Let's wait for the car to pass. I have to speak against the background noise of cars, because this place of power is near a highway. So we have come to a new place of power. Later I will describe it. And now I want to ask you a question. On the previous place of power, where the Mahadouble of the Sathya Sai Baba is, there we merged with the consciousness of the earth. And I said that the earth is moving through the space with the speed of 30 kilometers per second, and that one can, by becoming the consciousness of the earth, experience this enormous speed. Did anyone manage to experience this? To experience the speed of moving through the space? Who managed? It is good that no one said yes, because it's impossible to do this. All of these speeds are inherent to the world of Prakriti.
to the world of matter.
Сталкиваются, там ломаются все. Это присуще миру пракрити, миру материи. В мире сознаний, в тонких мирах, ничего этого не происходит. Там
There, consciousnesses freely interpermeate with each other without hitting each other. In the world of consciousness, in subtle words, nothing like this happens. There, consciousnesses freely interpermeate each other without hitting each other. The consciousness of the earth is a vast divine soul, which does not exist in the world of Prakriti.
Matter
moves, and it can be hit by a meteor or a comet. One day, the Earth may collide with a comet and be destroyed. All such collisions of the world of matter never happen in the subtle worlds. In the subtle worlds, a consciousness very aptly and tenderly interacts with another consciousness in harmony and in love, independently of the speed. We can make a simple experiment. For example, over there you can see the nice forest that is behind us. We can move as consciousnesses to any distance and can merge with the sattva of the forest. We have learned to do it. So we can move into this forest and become it. We can fill the bodies of those trees with ourselves, and we can experience how birds are singing on them. Now, come back to your bodies, and then go back again to the forest. So, we have moved as consciousnesses. Of course, there are different souls around us. But have we noticed them? We haven't even noticed them. It's the same with the consciousness of the earth, and with us, if we're merged with that consciousness. It is as if we move in the world of Purusha, in the world of souls, of paradisical souls through paradise. We move and we don't notice them. We can intentionally notice the souls that we come across on our path. Co-essential consciousnesses of paradise never collide. They never have clashes. Very well, we have understood this. If some of you had said, I experienced the speed in paradise, like how cars in the material world rush, collide, destroy, and so on. If you had experienced something like that, then you would get a bad mark, because in the world of paradisical souls, nothing like that happens. Speed cannot be experienced there. The speed can be much higher than 30 kilometers per second. It's enough to move the concentration to any distance, and we appear there. This is the speed of consciousness transfer. It cannot be measured in some units, in the units of the material world. Now let's wait for this car to pass, and I'll describe this place of power, where we are now. There are two places of power in this area. This one, and 30 meters away, there is a completely different one. We'll go there in several minutes. Here, there is the following phenomenon. Below the surface of the ground, there is a huge reservoir, a lake of light, like a tank, with condensed light. It is a huge reservoir, a lake of the purest, subtlest light. We can use this light to wash and enrich our bodies. There are methods in Raja Yoga, methods that are used for cleansing and purifying the energy structures of the body, including the chakras and meridians. There are many different meridians. We work with only the basic meridians. But when we use the various pranayama methods, then all the meridians get purified, large or small. All the meridians through which the energy passes at the given part of the body get purified. And here we can scoop from that reservoir of light. We can scoop the light or turn our hands and legs into pumps. We can do anything, and with that light, we can cleanse and enrich our temporary dwelling places, from which we can flood into the universe. For example, one can do the following pranayamas. To begin with, let's describe the movement. Pranayamas are convenient to do while performing gentle movements. We gently shift the body from one leg to another. Our feet are parallel, and our legs are slightly bent, so that there is no tension in our legs. This makes it more convenient because there is no discomfort. Our backs should be absolutely straight. Our pelvises should not be shifted backwards. It is as if we are leaning against a wall. And so, we do soft movements from one leg to another. And when doing this, it's very convenient to work with pranayamas. How to work with pranayamas? Pranayama is a movement of energy. Prana is energy, yama is work. And so, from the reservoir, we draw the light into the body through one leg. And at the end of that movement, we pour it through one hand. When the body moves to the other side, we then do the same thing. We draw the light through the other leg, through the body, and then pour it through the other hand. We can do it very effectively here. Our eyes may be closed. Usually, during meditations, our eyes should be opened. But during these pranayamas, we can close our eyes. We do them with gentle, tender, and harmonious movements. We can forget about everything for some time. Each movement makes the body more and more pure. Now, try to do the same thing. Repeat this and do as I am doing. I will show another exercise later. There are many of such exercises, but the main condition is to use the purest, subtlest light. We have to become this light. And by doing this very simple exercise, one can cure almost any disease. We direct streams of light into the diseased part of the body, and we see that if this part was dark, black, it becomes more and more filled with light, becoming lighter and lighter. And at the end, everything dark disappears. Everything becomes filled with the purest light. We become light. In the body there is nothing but light, and we become healthy. Also, an important condition is that there should be no synthetic garments on the body. Synthetic fabric prevents the healing energy to pass through the body. These kinds of exercises were first developed in China, in the Taoist tradition. Some people ascribe these exercises to the tradition of Tai Chi or Qi Gong. But it's not important what we call them. It's important that we can work with them. Or another exercise, we take from the sky an image of the sun, and then we move the sun through the body to the opposite leg, or we move the image of the sun through the hand, through our hand, then our chest, and out through the other hand. Then we take another image and it moves in the opposite direction. In this way, one can work with images of the sun, even where there are no such underground tanks of the purest healing light. No disease can last if we persistently repeat such movements. Of course, one should get rid first of the source of disease. Every disease has a source, a karmic source. We have to understand its origin, its source. For example, diseases can come from eating killed food, coarse emotions, or aggressive attitudes towards others. We have to become love. When we exit from the state of love, we accumulate negative fate, negative karma. And no healing method can help if we haven't got rid of the source of the disease. But if we remove the source of the illness, the source that caused the negative karma, if we remove the pathology inside the body, inside the energetics of the body, then it's very easy to triumph over the illness by using such simple methods. Simple pranayamas. One can do many different exercises. This place of power is a wondrous place of power for doing such exercises. I don't know of any better place. We were, for example, on the places of Han, of Huang, in their Mahadubles. All these places, from the point of view of healing, are very good. But there we do other exercises. But to work with pranayamas of this kind, of the Taoist Chinese kind, this is the best place, without a doubt. What can one also do here? One can dive into the reservoir of light with the consciousness and splash like a child, with joy and with bliss, and swim. And one can splash the light onto one's body, make waves, wash the body with that blissful light, that divine light, and wash the inside of the body. Very well. All of you have cleansed your bodies. And now let's go to the place nearby. It's very different. Just recently, we cleansed our bodies and healed them. That place is only 30 meters away. And here is another place of power, on another road. That road goes through the field to that place of power. And this road goes to a different state of consciousness. This is a continuation of the work with bubbles of perception, with the lower bubble. See what will happen now. I made my cocoon like the cocoon of a regular human. And now I'm going to walk 2 steps there. And you will see what will happen to my lower bubble of perception. My lower bubble has now become the size of the entire planet. Now I can reach the opposite side of the Earth. This is the crystallization of consciousness. If the consciousness, after mastering Raja Yoga, is ready to become vast, if the ethics and intellect are in order, if we can work in subtlety, then this is the place where we can become. If we understand the mechanism of all this, then this is it. This is the direct growth of consciousness with the help of places of power. When we're weak and small, we cannot enter the abode of the Creator, even if we are subtle. One has to have power to do this, the power of consciousness, in order to cross the spatial dimensions. We have to become so large that we become comparable to that macro world where we want to live, where the Creator lives. And we realize this through the methods of Buddha Yoga. Through work on these kinds of places of power, we realize this potential of ours, and we realize our meaning of life. We realize our predestination that was set for us by God. We came here to become, to transform ourselves from small souls into vast souls. Atmic, perfectly pure souls. And the next step is to submerge into the Creator and to merge with Him forever. Now, all of you who are present here, all of you are worthy to enter and become like this.
Ну и вот, друзья, мы
And now, friends,
раз стали такими большими
we
и
have become so large,
научились ощущать
and we
себя
have learned
не телами,
to experience ourselves
а разлитым огромным
to be
сознанием,
not our bodies, but flooded vast consciousnesses.
то вот пришла пора
So the time has come.
птички поют,
Birds are singing,
лебеди.
specifically swans.
Пришла пора
The time
перейти ко второму этапу
has come to
центрирования,
begin the second step of centering,
чтобы научиться переносить
to
себя,
learn to transfer oneself
как сознание,
oneself as a
с самоощущением себя,
with self-perception,
переносить в нашу
to transfer
родную планету,
into the consciousness of our familiar planet.
которая, как мать, вырастила нас
It
здесь,
has raised us
как любящая
like a
мать.
loving mother.
Мы должны на самом деле полюбить ее,
We have to learn
так
to
же,
love
как
it
она любит нас.
like it loves us.
И через эту любовь мы
And through this
можем
love,
войти в
we
слияние
can enter
с ее
into
сознанием.
emergence of consciousnesses with
Все
it.
прекрасно, когда мы
It is so wonderful to live
состоим из любви.
when we're feeling that we are made of its love.
Сколько блаженства в каждый момент можно ощущать.
One can experience so much
Вот
bliss
соприкосновение с
in every
самой
moment
землей,
when being in touch with the earth,
с живым светящимся существом огромным,
with this living
в сравнении
shining
с нашими телами,
and vast being.
но вместе с тем таким маленьким, если посмотреть в
But at
масштабах
the same
этой
time,
галактики,
it is so small if one looks at it from
не говоря
the
уже о
galactic scale
Вселенной.
or from the universal scale.
Если вот мы из таких масштабов смотрим, как
If we look
галактика,
from such scales,
тем более
like the
Вселенная,
galactic or
то
universal ones,
становится очень очевидна бессмысленность
then it becomes very clear
гордости
that human
человеческой,
pride is ridiculous,
потому что каждый человечек, он настолько
because every
ничтожный,
human is so
обычный человечек,
infinitesimally
божественный
small,
человек тоже,
whether it be a regular
масштабах
human
Вселенной.
or even a divine human, when looked at from the scale of the universe.
Говорить о гордости, о том, чтобы гордиться хоть чем-то,
So, to be proud of something
совершенно
is
бессмысленно.
absolutely
Мы
absurd.
ничтожно малы, какими бы
We are
большими мы ни стали,
infinitesimally
ничтожно
small,
малы.
so how matter large we have become.
Богом,
We're infinitesimally small compared to universal God,
сознанием Творца,
to the consciousness of the Creator, to the primordial consciousness
заполняющим всю Вселенную.
which fills the whole universe.
Но вот если мы хоть чуть-чуть подросли все-таки,
But if we have grown a little bit,
то мы можем
then we can,
на данном этапе
on the current stage of our growth,
заполнить собой нашу планету, заполнять
we can fill the planet with ourselves.
только лишь сознанием анахаты.
What we can fill it with, only with the consciousness of the spiritual heart.
И вот здесь, на этом месте силы, в частности,
And
очень
on this
легко
place of power,
провалиться в землю,
in particular,
сонастроившись с ней,
It's very easy to fall into the earth by attuning to it,
проявлениями божественными,
by attuning to its subtle divine manifestations,
и стать ею,
and becoming it,
ощутив ее материнское
having
отношение.
experienced its motherly attitude towards ourselves, towards people.
Утончившись, мы становимся единосущными
Having become
с ней
subtle, we become co-essential
в
to it
сознании.
by the quality of ourselves as consciousnesses.
И мы забываем о существовании
We
своих
forget
тел,
about the existence of our bodies,
потому что они
because they are almost
вообще
invisible
незаметны из масштабов нашей планеты.
on the scale of our planet.
Их вообще не рассмотреть,
They cannot be seen
потому что в сравнении с планетой они
when compared
представляют
to the
собой
planet.
ничто.
They are negligible.
Мы же, как сознание, стали единосущными.
And we, as consciousnesses, become coessential to it.
Но сейчас вот мы можем
And now we
найти
can find
глубочайший покой и блаженство
the
внутри
deepest calm and bliss
несущего наши тела на себе
inside this living
живого
being
существа по имени наша планета Земля.
that is called our planet Earth, which carries our bodies on itself.
Baba